Good afternoon, everybody. You are at the TV show Together We Serve, where I interview incredible business people who have this ability to serve, lead, and make an impact in their world, and to show you how to make an impact in your own world. And I'm super excited to have my guest today. He's been on my podcast, was a raving success on my podcast, is an author, but you know what? He is an expert in servant leadership. He's actually teaching, that I just learned before the show in the green room, he actually teaches in college servant leadership. That's how powerful this is. Jon, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. That was a pretty great introduction. I'm just going to package that and wherever we go, that's what we get to take with.
Make that a beautiful short, because I think that's a pretty darn good short. I love it.
I'll take it. I've been introduced as a lot worse.
I know the feeling. So this is good. When you get a win, you go with the win.
That's right.
Let's talk about, I read through your bio and some of the things that you wrote. Tension in leadership. It's not talked about a lot. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, everything we do as a leader in business, there's always something pulling on us. There's going to be a business need that's pulling on us. There's going to be a personal need at home. There's going to be something with our team. We're going to find ourselves in between being able to or desiring to produce greater profit while also wanting to make sure that we are being generous and that we're sharing profit. We're always going to be pulled between, is this a run time, and how fast should we go on the vision and what opportunity is there? Or is this a space where we need to pace ourselves because of the people and the culture, and perhaps we're running lean on resources? That tension exists all the time. And I've found, I don't know about you, so much of the time I want to let go of that. And at different times I've thought that's what I'll do. And what I realize is that it actually becomes quite a crippling thing if I do in fact try to release that tension.
Is tension, anxiety, stress, all those kind of put into tension?
Yeah, they can present themselves that way, 100%. And I think if we start pulling some of those out, like getting on shows like this, going and speaking in front of a group of 150, 250, 500 people, I get a little anxious, but that anxiousness is actually me preparing and my body preparing to focus and do a good job. There's tremendously wonderful stress, eustress, where we just get super excited about things and we get positively stressed. There's the absolute flip side of that where, and maybe you or others have this, where we get anxious. And the way that I describe it is my nerve endings feel like every single one of them are firing at the exact same time. Or maybe if it's not my nerve endings, it's my brain. Like I just, all things all at once, all the time, right? And same with stress. We can take on and be stressed by things in our organization, by people problems, by big strategic decisions, by the fact that we may be coming in or out of a crisis. So the tension does not have to be a negative anxiety or a stress. It is something that we feel. It is something that pulls on us. And just like exercising, it can be something that when done in healthy amounts and right repetitions and with the support of spotters and, coaches, mentors, people around us, we and those around us will grow stronger through this.
I like that. I didn't think about that side of it. Stress, the tension's everywhere. If you can manage attention, that's what it sounds like you're talking about, that you work through, how people work through managing this tension of leadership.
Yeah, because all of us, anything in business, we always have pieces that are pulling. In training, we like to often, especially with middle managers, but let's be real, every single one of us has a boss everywhere. Even if you're the owner or the CEO or whatever, you usually just have more bosses. It's either all your clients or all of your board instead of just one boss. But all of us have that. And so often we take this rope and we get folks in the middle, and then we have different people standing at like 9 different pull points. And you start to move people and they feel, I get pulled by my family. That's a good thing to get pulled by. And it can be a struggle. I want to be with my family all the time. I also really want to work because I love what I do. I get pulled by a client this way. I get pulled by an opportunity where I think we're going to serve a lot of people and it's going to be a great return on the investment. I get pulled because I love my team and they're struggling in something and they're grieving and it might, for good or bad, pull us off track. But I'm the one in the middle here trying to hold all these things, and I have to as a leader, because whenever I give up to just one, I'm going to neglect something else.
I know this is going to take a little bit of time. This is a great title, Leading Transformational Growth and Change. Some people, and I know transformation comes in many sizes, small, medium, and large, and that's great. But some people go, I transformed. I wore a polo today or a button-up shirt today. I used to wear T-shirts. I want to talk about transformation, leadership, and how that you work with that, and how that affects people.
Yeah, transformation is such an interesting thing, right? Because I think about a caterpillar into a butterfly. They go into the metamorphosis, and like that's what all of us think about as transformation, is just this: I was one way, now I am another. Totally, completely true. And as you even teed up, Steve, it can be small little changes that create these ripples everywhere. But the key piece for us to all anchor on is what you already alluded to, is the time. So we often talk about growth and transformation really take a tremendous amount of truth. We have to be honest about what do we need, what do we have, what are some of the strengths, what are some of the deltas, kind of what is reality. It takes a lot of grace because I mess up a lot. And I've also found that I tend to learn a lot more through my mistakes and being able to pile up a bunch of those mistakes, doing them better every single time. But those two things take time and the consistency over time, kind of like a caterpillar hanging out in a cocoon, changing while nobody's seeing it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, dude, you're totally different than you were 5 years ago. Or, wow, remember when our organization just used to have this feel of gossip, or that nobody really knew what the expectations were. And now we're here and it's like, oh yeah, it feels like yesterday, but it was also 3.5 years ago. And all of the work that we've put in to then one day kind of look back and realize it's different. In the book, I wrote about me being a recovering people pleaser, and that one of the things that I had was just avoiding conflict and hard conversations. And I tell everybody, like, I had set a goal to get better at that, to do it by disagreeing and challenging information and trying to continuously step in well to conflict and hard conversations. And then the joke or the punchline is 10 years later, I'm a lot better at it and I still have to think about it all the time.
Yeah. And that's good, because the transformation also comes on the mentor side. As that leader, are you transforming people? If you're not transforming people, you're not really mentoring, are you?
Yeah. And I love it's actually part of how they train up doctors inside of residency. And I'm no doctor, nor do I do it like a doctor, but I've definitely built it into my own little model of what is one of the best ways to transform and to grow. Well, it's to teach, right? Or mentor. And so I always just had learn, do, teach. And as part of residency and preparing doctors, they do a lot of learning. They do a lot of repetitions. Do. They just, I'm not saying it's good how many hours and all of that, but they're doing it. And then part of it is that they actually teach. And I've just found that in teaching somebody else, it reinforces things in me. It reveals things that I was like, oh, I actually never thought about that. I need to think about that one. And then it also kind of puts me on the hook to say, like, okay, if I'm teaching you and helping you do this, I am now accountable to you in some degree. And I want to do this too.
That's a great model for business, that you're a CEO, you have a vice president, you learn, do, teach. You teach him how to be a CEO. He does it. Yeah, and you can't worry about, and a servant heart doesn't worry about that guy might leave and be a CEO in another company. That's a powerful tool that people lose sight of, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I was just talking with somebody today. He said, They were a very insulated organization kind of 5 years ago. They're a part of a much larger brand, but they said, you know what, we're kind of closed off. And so they started this intentional development of going to the other brands. And there's hundreds of them, but they wanted to start visiting to see, like, what do we need to learn from these other folks? And heck, if we actually have the best thing, then we should be teaching them. But part of that involved going to conferences like they've never gone to before. And his team said, well, if we go, like, our people are going to get job offers. They're going to get taken. And he said, I know. They will. And without fail, right? They went to the very first one. They took a tremendous amount of their team, hour drive. They go to a conference. And he was like, oh, yeah, one of our best people, I'm pretty sure they had 8 job offers in the first 30 minutes that they walked in that door. And it happens. And sometimes they stay. And sometimes they go. But the development process and the desire is to create a culture, to pour into people, and to create growth opportunities so they don't want to go anywhere. But if they do, what a tremendous part of the legacy that you're building, and being able to not see them as leaving, but you actually approach it as them launching into whatever else they're going to go do.
And the power of that from a positive standpoint, the new person comes in, here's the whole story. Hey, Jon just left. He went from vice president. He's CEO of a big company. Opportunities are open to you now as that being in that position. We're going to learn, do, teach, or learn, do, teach. And remember that with them, with that possibility, not saying that will happen, but so people are going to be clamoring for that job if that's what they do. Yeah. So you're saying we can't be fearful of losing the people, be accepting and be happy that they're moving forward because your universe changes.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sad when people go. I'm also accepting, and I'm excited, and I'm proud. It's definitely one of those places where it's like, well, this blows, but I'm also super excited for you, right? And we're good, and this is actually a great thing. And honestly, it leads to like an NFL coach, right? Like this tree of leaders that are just out there. It leads to future partnership opportunities. You never know when someone might go out for a season and boomerang back, being an even more equipped or trained or experienced leader. But when you look at it and kind of approach it with more of an open hand than a closed fist, you see it as something that can go, can return, and it can be good for everybody. Doesn't mean it's not painful or hurts, but it can be good.
Yeah, and the flip side is you're talking, which, Jon, it's so powerful that somebody listening that's an 8-to-5er, let's say at Apple, they're like, I'm going to do I'm going to learn, I'm going to do, and I'm be taught, because maybe I'm at a manager level, I want to go to a director level. In an Apple, let's say, that's a big jump, and not the pay is the most important thing, but that's pretty prestigious.
Yeah.
Now you've just opened the door for them to be able to possibly do it. Not saying it will, it's got to be a lot of variables, but hope is a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super powerful. Hope is one of the most powerful things. I mean, I think that's why we all love mission-driven work, being able to do work that matters. I mean, even Viktor Frankl, on one of his 3 things for meaning of life, said you have to have a project, something bigger than yourself. And he wrote from a place where for a portion of his life, he was interned in a concentration camp. And like, this guy is saying that. How powerful is that for something I'm grateful, and I've never experienced anything like that. And just the tremendous, you talked about stress, like that's not even stress. That's different. It's wrong. It's injustice. It's dehumanizing. To come out of that and say, here's the power of hope and meaning and life and work is powerful. Like you said, hope is a huge motivator.
And Franco is such an interesting story. I got to read that book again and watch that documentary on him, because it really tells us too that in a situation that's really negative, your mind's really open, meaning, hey, he's there, he's by him, he's of course with everybody else, but there's time and his mind's open. Yeah, he's got this stress, but now his creativity can come and his thought process. I have a podcast guest that was convicted of murder wrongly at 17 years old. He spent 32 years in prison. So similar to the Frank, a little different, but huge. When I met him, he's the most grateful, happy, joyous guy I ever met. Faith-driven, faith changed his life. I always ask people when I tell that story, and audience, think about it. If you're in prison for 32 years, how would you feel when you finally got out and, everything was, taken away, was found to be not right?
Yeah.
That's a very deep question. And I think about that all the time because, we, like you said, I make mistakes. Yeah, you made a mistake. You went on the wrong Zoom call and you missed a meeting. That or going to jail for 32 years. Okay, let's weigh and that's what mentors and leaders do, and think about that. And let's talk about, because I talked about this morning on a podcast, leadership and legacy. How are they tied together?
The entire act is kind of that of a legacy, right? I mean, as a leader, I see it as influencing the attitude, thoughts, and behaviors of others toward a shared purpose. And so the entire act, which it is an act, not a position, but the entire act of leadership is one of development, of service, of support, of trying to help people achieve something than anything that any of us could do by ourselves, and to help people reach their goals and their aspirations in the process, which, I just kind of think about myself today. I even got a text from one of my uncles who has left leaving, he's still with us, so leaving a tremendous legacy with me, and just that family tree, that the entire process is in fact that, good or bad. We're always leaving a legacy because our reputation will definitely outlive us.
Yeah, legacy is why, to break it down to granular. I know my why, my legacy, but should everybody have a legacy thought process?
Yeah, yes, because Covey said it's great to begin with the end in mind, and that's one of the things that really what I hear in what you're saying is a legacy thought process, or how do I want to be remembered, or doing the obituary activity, which we do with some of our clients, is, hey, go to the end and write the obituary that you're going to have. We've even done this with folks as they move into a new job. CEOs going through the process. It's a big deal. Write your exit press release. Is it 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 14, 40 years from now that you're leaving this organization? What's the press release going to be when you leave this place, when you leave this organization? And it forces all of us to look ahead and say, oh my goodness, my kids are going to be this old. I'm going to be this old. I really hope in the time, these are the big things that we do, that people feel, that we might have made an impact on, that maybe I'm remembered for, whatever that is. It forces us to look out, and it is an amazing prioritization tool. It allows us to focus in on things that really are important, instead of, kind of like you said, oh, this week is ruined. I totally botched that Zoom call because I missed it and forgot I had a teeth cleaning, and then I double booked this thing. And I mean, that happens. It's a mistake, right? Like, apologize and let's keep going, and let's not try to have that again. I mean, that stinks, but
it happens.
The direction of the organization, the amount of people we touch over a career, the amount of people that we can provide for, protect, create an environment where they can thrive. Those are the big questions for us in leadership.
It's interesting that, you say that, because a friend of mine, on a shout out to Max Lambright, he's been a CEO 7 times. He's a good friend. We're a partner in business. He talks about this in this way too. And to give a perspective for the audience is, you watch a movie. I mean, I went and saw The Fall Guy. So if you're watching this a year later, it's a good movie, by the way. But at the end is the credits. And he told me on my podcast a year ago, what does your credits look like? When they roll your credits at your memorial, what does it look like? Is it 2 or 3 sentences, or does it go on and on and on? Steve did this, John did this, John accomplished, at this location. So I love that. People think it's, and I want you to talk more, but people think it's morbid sometimes when I mention it. But I read the book, The Daily Stoic, and Stoics talk about it all the time. We're dying every day.
Yeah.
We're getting rid of something. Now, it's not death of leaving this earth, but we're dying. Maybe we're getting rid of something. We're throwing something away. But it's a really cool perspective on death, that it's inevitably going to happen. Let's live our life before that action happens. I love it. You had mentioned something I thought was pretty powerful. The difference from leadership and professional development, how that works.
Could you give me a little bit more on
So
that? What part of it is the how it works?
So in your book, you differ. How does your book differ from leadership and professional development works? Apologize.
Oh no, thank you. Thanks for the question. I think the book is one. Let's be clear, right? I wrote it because it was the book that I wish I had 10 years ago. So that's number one. Number two, I got through and I thought I had 40,000 words down and they were just terrible. They were disorganized. They were kind of out there, but it wasn't a book and it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I had kind of thrown it in, and two things happened that really made me circle back, and I'll get to the difference between, like, is this a leadership book? Is this a professional development book? One, I'm having a conversation with a global executive of a not-for-profit. And she says, I don't really see myself as a servant leader anymore. It doesn't work for me. There's so many connotations and people expect me to be this way. And honestly, Jon, as a female leader, it's not helpful because it's seen as soft. That's what she was saying. And that's powerful, to turn somebody off of a complete style of leadership because of all of the myths and the misconceptions and just the norms around it. Second thing was my wife and I were on this Zoom call watching something around strong marriages and being generous philanthropists. And Alan and Catherine Barnhart were on there. And Alan and Catherine are these tremendous, unassuming, humble, very confident, very secure business owners and philanthropists. And as I continued to listen to them and watch them, I saw this absolutely revolutionary style of servant leadership that was just grounded in the mission, something bigger than the organization, full of creating an environment where people can thrive, that servant heart to help others. And honestly, with Alan and watching him answer some of those questions, just tremendous business acumen and skill. And it was like these two things, this need that it's not just me, that there are other people that feel this way around servant leadership, like a little bit of the pat on the head. And then Alan's example, I was like, we got to do this. So jump in. And now, what is this book? The book is very much, it's a personal growth book. It's a journey of growing one's own personal foundation while overlaying it with what are some of the aspects of servant leadership: mission-driven, servant-hearted, business-minded, for moving in the direction of serving people, amplifying that impact, growing the influence to serve other people. It moves in that direction, but it's very much a personal growth and development book that then is set inside the context of the professional life and us as leaders.
What's interesting, as you're talking about your book, this also works for your life too, right? Does it spill over into life? It's just not me being the CEO of Amazon. It's what's happening in my household, what's happening with my relationships, friends, family, all that. Talk about that, how it affects your life.
So in the book, we say that there are three attributes that are kind of core. And this is what we coach to and train to. And it's that there's character. Dr. Townsend and Dr. Cloud define that as the ability to meet the demands of reality. A lot of us say it's our ethics, our morals. It is, yes, that, right? Do we have good character? But I can have the highest standards and I cannot be able to live into those things because of me things. So character is the both and in that. It's those high values, principles, morals, plus my ability to be able to meet the demands of the reality that I face. So character is one of those. Our relationships, if you start to envision this as a Venn diagram with overlapping circles, our relationships are another key part of that foundation. And they overlap and they are integrated, just like our leadership, our life, all of these things are integrated. So any of us, especially leaders, we need relationships. We are so isolated. We are so alone. And leaders, me, guilty, say things and really internalize things like, oh, it's lonely at the top. Nobody understands what I'm going through. I can't go to anybody with anything because I'm the person that everybody always has to come with. I'm the one, right? We say these things. And it's true that nobody understands your responsibility like you. But it is not true that you don't get people. And it's not true that others might not understand pieces of it and be able to support you in some of those areas. We get to do this whole thing in community. And so as leaders, especially, we need healthy relationships. We can't give something that we don't have. And so we guide folks to, you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need a cheerleader, because this is hard work. You just need somebody telling you to keep going. You need a friend that you do not work with, a place where you do not have that responsibility, where it's totally mutual. And you need a partner inside of the organization. If you are the vision caster, they are the operator. If you are the one that is super creative, they're the one that might be a little bit more structured. You need a complement, somebody that you implicitly trust that you get to work alongside. And so then that last piece is skills, the stuff that we can develop, that grow in, the vision casting, communication, our emotional intelligence, our decision making, all of those pieces we get to bring together to build a strong personal foundation through which we get to lead. And that carries wherever we go, just like you were teeing up. I mean, being a one way in leadership role, going to be in a different way as a dad, husband, friend, is exhausting. Most of us have done some sort of mask wearing and changing. And I know I can be completely guilty of being able to chameleon my way into different settings. And honestly, it's a lot more exhausting than just being ourselves wherever we go. And being able to build that strong foundation to where you're free to be yourself, where you are humble enough to let other people step in to exactly the gifts and talents and uniqueness that they have, and to be confident in saying, this is an area where I can serve at a very high level. It's amazing. And that allows us to step into truly serving people, a greater mission, walking between how do I hold that tension of business decisions and how we treat people in our organization, and how we involve folks in decisions, and how we empower others to go be autonomous in their role. I got to be strong with me before I can go do that with other people.
Man, Jon, that's so well said. You need a peer as a partner.
Yes.
If you're a CEO, if I'm a CEO in another company, and I know some people that have masterminds or meetings once a month with fellow CEOs, and that's such an easy way of doing it.
Yeah.
Not that cost doesn't matter, but it's just time. But what a valuable way to handle your time. Okay, we're going to jump into the book and a little bit about what you do for a business. We'll take a 2 or 3 minute break. I want Jon, he's been speaking the whole time, spouting out some big truths here, which I love. Let's have him give a break, and we'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. Well, we're back. That little elevator music. Hope it didn't put you to sleep. Hope it excited you. Because that first segment of this show, servant leadership is the bomb, as the kids would say, is the way to go. Jon's proven that. And, with a company that says lead well, just not lead, but lead well. And what I love about Jon, you're going to learn more about his book and his company, is he takes it to the next step. That's why I want him on this show. We can lead, we can serve, but do a little extra to make you a little different, a little unique. But it's always good to give a little extra. Somebody gives you $100 instead of $50, you're going to be a little bit happier, maybe a lot happy, depending on how it is. Let's bring Jon back. Jon, welcome back to segment 2.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
So, it's interesting. Leadwell is such a great name for a company. I've told you that in my podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell me why well. You could say lead great, lead incredibly, lead. There's got to be some message behind that.
Well, definitely. So the honest truth is that we didn't know what to call it. Like when we first started, it was called the Kidwell team. And because it was like, I didn't want to be a group. I didn't want to be an agency. I didn't want to do that. Like team is so important. Like the team, even our kids, they're 7, 4, and 2. And we say teamwork and they say makes the dream work. And like, I get it. We're corny. But at the same time, it's true. So it was always going to be something about this team aspect. And then I went out to one of our clients and he was like, dude, like you should totally do serve well. Like that's what you do. You just serve people so well. And I was like, that's not it. And just, we noodled on it and wrote stuff down. Like 3 months later, I typed something into my phone and I did lead and then I italicized it and wrote well. And the well comes because we can do a lot of things really poorly. I can lead and I can do it poorly. I can do it in a way that is going to short-term change myself, my health, my life, my other priorities outside of just work. I could do the same for my team, and I don't want to do that. We want to create an environment, a culture, a place where people can thrive. And for them to do that, they have to be well in multiple aspects of life, and work being one of them. And so we wanted to instill this idea of leading and this kind of aspirational, but doing it well, where we can come into this with a servant heart, with a business mind, where how we treat people and how we do work matter. But also the well means like we want to do well. We want to produce results. We want to deliver an impact. We want to serve more people. We just also want to hold those things together while we do it. And then, truth be told, after we get all done, someone was like, if you knew me personally, your first response to Leadwell was, oh, that's cool. You worked in well from your last name in there, Kidwell. And I was like, oh yeah, honest to goodness truth, that was not one of the intentions. And then if you were not a personal friend, but you saw it, you'd be like, oh, I love the context of doing this well, being well at work, being able to lead in a way that is healthy. Like, so they had that side of it, but all the friends totally said like, oh, I see what you did working in half of your last name there. And it was like, oh, honest to goodness truth, didn't even realize that until after, and people started bringing it up.
Creativity comes from the craziest places.
It's
a great story. It's such a great story. And it's great because it works.
It works. Yeah. It works.
So you got a company, you've got staff. So you're living to everything we're talking about. How does this idea of servant leadership show up in your company mission, vision, values of Leadwell?
I mean, I think it lives itself out most through the team. You said something about that 100 and that 50, and one of our things is extra mile service. Like we want to do the thing that is kind of surprising in service. We focus tremendously on the customer. I mean, the whole thing we do is for leaders. Like we want to help leaders and their organizations thrive. We want them to do well. We want everyone there to do well, and we want to help you do it at your best. And so we try to think of things. And honestly, once we set those up and turn it over, it's people like Matthew that just continue to one up all of the pieces that we do, where we also say we're going to do it and we're going to iterate for excellence, right? We're going to do it and we're going to make it better as we go. And he just keeps making it better. And that is one of the ways that I think our mission and our vision and really the values of our organization keep showing up. I think about the fact that it's honestly a race to help each other a lot of the time, which is really cool to think about that. And watching the others, honestly, not speaking for myself, watching the others just do things without a strong need for being the person or who gets credit for what, but looking and saying, on the other end of this email is a Jackie, a Ken, a somebody that is there that we can help. I mean, I get texts from team members all the time after a coaching call, and I'm thinking about one, Angela, and she's like, "I just love this stuff. It was so great. We did this, and we did it," and it's like that's what it is. Kind of getting lost in helping other people do what they're trying to do really well. And so that's a little bit of how it plays out.
It's very cool. And I have to say this. Oops. And that's kind of, half joking, half not, because what I hear from people, and I want you to answer this because I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, as we've discussed, and I'm the complete opposite of a servant company. I can't change. How am I going to change? The answer to that.
So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff there, and to kind of go in full coach of you use one of the words that is a tremendous ear-catching word, and it's the word can't. And so can't is an interesting word. There's a lot of things that we can't do, but there's just a lot of things that we won't do. And so paying attention to that language is probably the first one. So if I was with that individual, I'd want to dig in and start asking questions about, well, what is it that exists that makes it so that you can't do this? And usually pretty soon thereafter, we figure out that it's a won't, it's a don't want to, it's a whatever, those type of things. And then I think we typically change when the comfort of staying the way we are becomes uncomfortable. And whatever we want to move toward, we know it might be a little bit uncomfortable for a while, but we see a better, more comfortable kind of future. Or there's the results of moving through that discomfort that we actually want. And so if somebody says we can't change, I can't change the culture, I would say, especially if that person is in the middle of the organization, they're a mid-level manager and they're just feeling like, listen, you talked about that rope earlier and me in the middle of all these stakeholders. You can. You start first with yourself and you choose to be the person that's going to do it differently. And then you start with the small area of influence that you have in starting to do that differently. And eventually, people are attracted to things that work well, that go well, that are healthy. People are going to want to know what's going on differently in Janice's section. And they're going to want to know why everybody on Steve's team stays, but everybody on Eric's team leaves. What's the difference there? And the more you do that, the more that will continue to create the ripple change. And if it's somebody that is leading the entire organization saying, we can't change, and we've gone through the can'ts versus the won'ts, then we got to figure out what is that desired future. What is that piece, the ideal state? Not saying we're going to get to perfect, not a perfect person, don't have a perfect company. We have fun. We do great work. We help people. We're not perfect. We got stuff. We struggle just like everybody else struggles. And what is that desired future? And let's start plotting out the steps that we can take to get there. And how do we cascade that vision? And how do we communicate it? And now how do we structurally support it?
I love what you said. I'm going to repeat it, audience, for you. I'm going to write it down. Can't really means I don't want to. I love that because I can't, I can't walk a mile once a week. You can if you change some habits and do something. It's always work. And I think, does work scare people when they say I can't do? Is that part of that?
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm often scared of the hard, uncomfortable things. I think just 2 weeks ago, I like to run, and I like to do push-ups and sit-ups and like body weight exercises, and I do that when I go out in the morning and I run. But I went to one of these groups where it's a bunch of men and they get together and they do kind of an organized, semi-structured group exercise class in the morning. I'm a fairly fit individual. I actually used to work in an organization that did health and wellness. I actually used to lead some of those classes. I was tremendously uncomfortable. I was scared. It was hard. I didn't know what was coming next. They were going to say, go do this. And then I had to be like, okay. And I didn't know the language of everybody else that was doing it. They called stuff weird things. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? I don't know. And so you turn and look at people and, oh, I know what that is. I don't call it whatever they just said it was. And so all of a sudden it's like, yeah, it is. And I think that growth, that change is tremendously hard. It's scary. Those that step into it are tremendously courageous and have just such a determination. I am always in awe and just like so amazed by folks that come and do our programs and coaching and that step in to be Ironmen and do all these different things. I mean, we don't do that stuff, but you watch people go do these things and it's amazing and it is hard and it is scary. And I don't think your question was, do people avoid work? I don't think so. I think we get really scared with what we don't know and with what could go wrong and with looking like we're completely, out of our element or drowning. And I think that is the biggest kind of withholder. People that I run into, they are not afraid of hard work. They will work tremendously hard at parenting, at working in their jobs. Like that's usually not it. It's usually there's a fear of change and of embracing that because of all the would-be's, could-be's, what-ifs, and what mights that go along with it.
Yeah, well said. Because and it was just a thought that came to my head, and that's what I do on these shows. They're live shows, as they say. And that's well said. And that's usually not the problem. But what's interesting is, I want to learn more about Jon the person. You ready?
I think so. We'll see. Let's dig in.
Boy, did I set that up, didn't I? First question: what does Jon do on a Friday night?
Ooh, it is a Friday night as of recording this. So as soon as you and I are done, I am signing off. I will likely go outside and throw the baseball or run and play Monsters and Dragons, which just means that we're playing tag with the kids. And then the kids, we put them to bed. And every Friday night for as long as I shouldn't say every, it's a superlative, it's a definitive, nearly every Friday night for 4 or 5 years now, my wife and I have done a date night. Very rarely do we go out. Almost every Friday night, we take 2 chairs, turn them in towards each other, set up this little table, and have a sushi date night in our living room, and just hang out and talk and do that. So that is almost always what I'm doing on a Friday night.
I don't know about the audience, but that sounds so special. I mean, the date nights could, but I just want to decompress on a Friday night. I think I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like your wife, the person you love, your partner, it's so powerful. Favorite movie genre?
Action movie, for sure. Any the Star Wars, Avengers, anything sci-fi action. Yeah, all in on that.
Okay. If you're a professional athlete, what sport would you play?
What sport would I play, or what sport would I want to play?
Well, would want to. I mean, yeah. I don't see you as an offensive tackle in football, so I know it's not that.
Nope. The 5'9" frame keeps me from what was probably my desire growing up, which would have been NBA. Totally, I loved basketball. Nice. I still really enjoy basketball, but the one that I probably would play was soccer.
Yeah.
But again, 5'9" didn't get me very far in the basketball realm of things.
Yeah. And it's funny, we're in 2024 and you're listening to this. I'm older. I just saw today, today or yesterday, that 14-year-old signed a $5 million contract, 14 years old, to play soccer for the Philadelphia, and then eventually Man City, I think. Yeah, Man City. The world has changed, and I do this for dreaming. I thank you for those answers.
Yeah.
But with dreaming comes inspiration. You got to dream and be inspired. What inspired you to write this incredible book?
The fact that I realized by talking with people, one lady in particular, but then all of our clients, that the perceptions of who and how a servant leader must be weigh on us. And it wasn't just a me thing. I wasn't the only one that felt sometimes like it was a pat on the head, that it was a bless your heart, you're naive. That's not the way the real world works. That's not how we do stuff in business. It's never going to work when you care about big old causes and creating environments where people thrive and doing business really well. Like, no. When I realized that wasn't just me, and then when I saw such a wonderful picture in Alan and Catherine Barnhart, those were kind of the critical pieces that wanted to get it over the line, that really inspired me. There was also I wanted to go through the process of writing a book. Can I do it? How do you do it? This is an area to learn. This is an opportunity to kind of metabolize and put out some things that I think that have worked for me, that definitely haven't worked for me. When you read the book, you realize a lot of it is struggle stories and then personal success stories, and figuring it out through those things, and figuring out what other people do, and figuring out what other people have taught and trained, and internalizing it and bringing it into how does this work for others. And so definitely those two inspiration things, and a little bit of the, like, I want to do this to show myself that I can do this, and to be able to have this thing for myself and for our business.
Accomplishments are so great. They make a life changer. Like, you wrote the book, you finished it, it's out there, it's being bought. And you inspired me, because I've been thinking about it, now you've inspired me. And that's what these shows are all about. We're coming to somewhat to the end here. You talk about your podcast.
Yeah, we have the Leadwell podcast. It's a podcast for mission-driven leaders. So those that want to do business well, for more than the bottom line, that want to go in and lead in this way, that's mission-driven, that is for the people, that is also very results and performance-driven by the bottom line, but holding all that together. I bring folks on, other mission-driven leaders that are out there doing it, leading well where they are. And I ask them a ton of questions like Steve asks me right now. And then they share. And we talk about conflict, and we talk about culture, and we talk about serving in your strengths. And one of the more recent ones that hasn't come out yet is the leadership network and ecosystem development of people, and how you do that in your organization, but also how you do that in your community. And so it's a great spot. Would love to have people check it out. It's the Leadwell podcast, and you can listen or watch it pretty much anywhere you can listen or watch stuff.
Yeah, do a search, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you want to go. And I've listened to a couple, and they're really good. He leads well. Jon, you lead well, to use that acronym. And you have workshops. Talk about quickly about your workshops.
Yeah, we work with leaders in predominantly organizations, and we come in and we typically function as their leadership development and training arm of their business. So we work with mission-driven organizations that are mid-size, somewhere between 25 and 500 team members, 15 and 150 million in revenue usually. And we work with their executives doing offsite retreats and team building. We work with their key leaders in the organization through our comprehensive leadership development program. And we do training events, but we pair everything with coaching. So information plus a facilitator, a coach, a guide, and the peers around you to help apply and bring it to life where you live, where you lead.
Now, the website's below. You'll see it in the ticker below us. Is there any other way people can reach out to you?
Yeah, for me personally, and then also for Leadwell, I am on most social sites at Jon Kidwell, and LinkedIn is at Jon.Kidwell. No H, Can't hear it, I don't use it. Just JONKIDWELL. And then all of our Leadwell handles are at the Leadwell page across the different socials.
Fantastic. We've got a couple minutes left. What's lasting remarks you want to leave?
Oh man, thank you. I think together we serve, right? And that in any single one of us going out and serving is a wonderful thing. Acting for the benefit of other people, being able to receive service from others. Your kindness and generosity, having me on here and asking questions, has been so great. But when we do that together, when we all start operating in that mode and that mindset of collectively focusing on things that are big and important, doing it with the heart of helping other people, and doing it in a way where we can create environments where people thrive. That's when the ripple of one person serving becomes 3 people serving, become 30 people serving, and that's when together we get to do that. So hopefully folks are inspired and can go out and start doing that wherever they are.
Thank you, Jon. This has been incredible. Went so fast, but I know people learned a lot, and they're going to learn a lot as they listen to the recording. And everybody, we'll see you at the next episode next week, Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. I always mess up those time zones. I'll have Tim Wright with Dome Audio. He won the Super Bowl in 2014 with Patriots, but more importantly, he has built a headset where deaf people can now hear. So listen to Together We Serve. That's an industry that he's serving big time. We'll see you all next week. Thanks again for showing up.